time Fort Mcginnis is being founded, this place is being discovered. At the very same time. Matter of fact, kind of an interesting story. Why, you got this thing running?
It's already going.
Oh.
Well, let's start.
That's how I do all my podcasts, just start them.
Let's start with that and Fort Mcginnis, where it's at.
That was a horse fly.
Well, then I get nervous when I know this is on. No, what I like to do is I like to step it back. Because as a kid, we always thought, oh, Maiden, that was frontier days, you know, there was nobody here. But, you know, central Montana, there was quite a bit going on here. And a lot of that started with the Carroll Trail. And you know, the Carroll Trail was established from up on the river, the Missouri River, up at Carroll, Montana. It was established for freighters to get over to Helena and Diamond City in that country. Okay. Because the steamboats coming up the river, right, to go the other, whatever it is, 150 miles or whatever to get to Fort Benton, well, lots of times they couldn't get there because there wasn't enough water. But you could always get to Rocky Point.
Oh, it's Rocky Point. That's where Carroll Coulee is.
That's right. Yeah. Rocky Point. Yeah. But it was first known as Carroll. Then actually, you can't walk around with this thing.
Yeah, it's a pain.
Well, it doesn't do any good. You see that picture over there? See that old man with the white beard?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is my great-great-grandfather, William Birkin. And that is my grandmother, the woman.
And I'll get close up here in a little bit. But. Yeah.
So getting back to this story, William Birkin was an early pioneer. He arrived in Fort Benton in either 1862 or 1863 on a riverboat. And only 3 boats made it that season. But anyway, that's how William Birkin ended up there as a young man, my great-great-grandfather. And he came up there because he'd met people in St. Louis, I believe, that were freighters up here. So he came up here, and then he started out being a boss freighting between Fort Benton with oxen teams and Helena and Diamond City, all of the gold country, because that's what was going on. Mm-hmm. But in, I think it was 1867 or something like that, they get on this gig where the same problem. The river boats coming up, especially from Bismarck, lots of times the low water, they couldn't get to Fort Benton, right? So they're unloading freight all along the river as far as they could get. And then freighters are having to come out of Fort Benton, pick this stuff up, take it to Fort Benton, and then ship it around.
Okay.
So my great-great-grandfather there, Bill Birkin, he tried to establish a trail from Helena, Diamond City, that part of the country, up the Muscle Shell, around the south end of the Snowies, all the way up the Muscle Shell, and they were going to establish a town, and there was very briefly a town there, right at where the Muscle Shell comes into the Missouri.
Okay.
So, anyway, there's quite a tale to his whole adventure there. They even had a little howitzer. He had maybe 20 guys in this party that was going to establish this trail. That's how Careless Creek got its name. Because one day they were in that area, I think they were still on their going, but one of the guys borrowed a gun to go hunting, borrowed somebody's rifle that day, didn't come back to camp. So they went looking for him. There he was, his horse still standing there, he's dead. He apparently had accidentally somehow shot himself with his gun and killed himself. And Careless Creek. Yeah. Bill Birkin named that Careless Creek.
Careless Creek or Crooked Creek.
Careless Creek.
On the other side of the Snowy.
Yeah. And I think that's how Swimming Woman Canyon got its name, too.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
I don't know that one.
It's funny you're talking about this because we're just talking with the wife, the Bowman family. Yeah. They grew up in Jordan.
Yep.
Well, I've talked to her, asked her who this was. We were just told the other day that her great-great-grandmother taught at the school down at Crooked Creek, and that's probably when they were trying to put out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
School,
Yeah, they
school
had,
down there.
yeah.
And that's probably when they were
Yeah.
trying to build this town down there.
Yeah. And I'm not sure the pronunciation. I think it was called Kershive City, Keiec, some weird name. But it had some crazy goings on there. Liver Eaton Johnson, who was a real guy, that's where he got into a go around with some Indians once. Was at this
And where is
Junction
this at?
City. At the mouth of the Muscle Shack.
Oh, it's at that mouth. Okay.
And that didn't pan out, nor did that trail pan out. Now we got way off the track here because Bill William Birkin didn't have anything to do with Maiden. He's on my father's side of the family, other than he was on the first board of county commissioners for Fergus County, Montana Territory.
Okay.
And he was the chairman of the first of the board, and he was up here in Maiden on county business and stuff. But anyway, we got a little diverted there. But anyway, so then jumping back to where I was going was this Carroll Trail. And so the Carroll Trail got established in 1874 or 75, and the military then was to escort these wagon trains, these freight trains. So they had camps at various places. Box Elder Creek was one of the first places. Then where Lewistown ended up, Fort Lewis.
Okay.
Some of them were stationed there. They were stationed over by Oka at different places, these small military groups.
Okay.
And very early on, they established a telegraph line along there. So getting back to what I was saying, there was more going on here. This wasn't the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
There was telegraph lines that came up the Missouri from back east. I assume, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm undoubtedly in the 1870s, there's telegraph all the way to Fort Benton. Telegraph lines come all the way up the river, you know? Mm-hmm. So the Carroll Trail didn't last too long, no, because the people at Fort Benton didn't cotton to this. Think what this was doing. Oh, now steamboats just had to come up to Carroll or Rocky Point. Didn't have to go to Fort Benton, other than maybe go up and pick people up to come down and stuff.
Right.
But the Fort Benton people, and you ought to see the back and forth in the newspapers.
They became obsolete.
Ooh, the editorials. Yeah. And anyway, they had the same problem that people are plagued with today. Getting out of the Missouri River breaks. Imagine a freight wagon. Just envision this. A freight wagon with say 12 oxen pulling it in that gumbo.
Yeah.
So all of these oxen are going to prod through that gumbo that's sticking to their legs, and they can hardly move anymore.
Right.
Dragging these wagons that maybe had
it's hard
4
enough
or
just to
5
walk through
tons on them.
Yeah. Crazy.
So it didn't last very long.
No, that wouldn't.
But that established kind of a trail through here.
Yeah.
Yep. And I believe before the white man ever settled in this country, when I look at central Montana and like the Judas and Warm Spring Canyon here, and then Maiden Canyon, I look at this, if you were Indians and you were migrating, say, from the high woods and you're wanting to go over east here, you know, oh, well, this would have been a real attractive draw. For one thing, you could have come between the north and south moccasins, stopped there at Warm Springs, had yourself a nice bathe and a nice place to camp, a nice place to hunt buffalo, right? Mm-hmm. And then why go that way around the Judas or up to Lookout Pass, or these places weren't named then, or up around the north end?
Why not just go right
through
the middle?
Why just come right up this Warm Spring Creek Canyon, right over the divide through Maiden Canyon, and there you go. So I believe this place was probably well traveled by Native Americans, and I believe this place right here at the head of Warm Spring Gulch or Canyon was a pretty attractive place. I'm sure it was I know it was totally overgrown with timber, you know, and downfall and all that, but this would have been a very
Because this got cleared
place.
out because of the town, right? This is all
Oh,
filled
yeah,
in.
yeah. So,
It's kind of cool how it's.
you know, you had stuff going on, and you had ranches. You had the Brooks brothers over by Warm Springs is probably 1878, definitely 1879. You had the Gorman Ranch, which is now the Michelson Ranch right up New Year. Matter of fact, if you drive up New Year, you'll see their gate right there, and it's got a sign right on it, Gorman Ranch, 1879.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, you know where the Michelson Ranch is, the Spear Tea?
I don't.
It's down the Gulch here. There was a gentleman by the name of it'll come to me, one of them deals. He had a ranch started there. He was there in 1879, okay? As a matter of fact, he had a little placer dig down there, and the dump is still visible if you know where to look. So he had a placer dig, placer, Placer. A lot of people look at it and they say placer because that's what it looks like. No, it's placer. And placer mining is when you're digging in the creek beds, right? Getting the gold that's eroded out of the veins that wash down into the creek. That's your placer deposit.
Okay.
Where we all ended up here is with the lode deposits, Lode. That's the ore in place in the vein.
Oh. Okay.
And what happened when the mountains eroded down over millions of years where these veins stuck up, right? They eroded down and the veins crumbled and out comes the gold and the silver and it kind of amalgamates itself as it gets worked down into the creek and you get a lot of flakes, but sometimes it'll amalgamate itself and kind of weld itself into making nuggets and stuff.
Oh,
and
interesting.
That's where the placer gold comes from.
I didn't know it'd come back into a solid form.
Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of little flakes. So if you look at some of these high-grade veins where you can actually see the gold in them, that's rich enough that's where this placer gold comes from. That's where the Yogo sapphires come from. They eroded out of a dike, same way.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing.
That's an interesting topic too. Yoga sapphires. That's an interesting one.
That's an interesting thing too, because we're at 1879. Well, gold was first discovered up in the belts up high on Yogo Creek. It didn't have that name at that time. In 18...
Do you know the name at the time?
Pardon?
Do you remember the name at the time?
Didn't have a name.
No, it didn't have a name. Oh,
Indians
okay.
probably,
I see
the Indians probably had a name for it.
For sure.
This was in the late 1860s. Some guy and just a party of, a very small party of people found some placer gold up there. But when this is written stuff, this is where I'm getting this. The Indians kind of told them, it might be best if you boys just moved on.
Yeah.
And so they didn't hang around and investigate it. And then it wasn't until 1879 that a small party got back up there. And then here comes the flood. In 1879, that's where Yogo City got its start. And that turned into a regular little town up there, up Yogo Gulch. It was short-lived, but that was for the placer gold. So while they're looking for placer gold on Yogo Creek, as they work their way down towards the Judith River, probably all the way back then, some people were saying, "Gee, I wonder what these blue things are." Ignored.
Right.
A lot of people think that's when the sapphires were discovered, but that was not until 1894 when.
Really?
Yep.
That late?
Yep.
Wow.
1894 was that when Eaton found them up there. Yeah, I'd have to check that date, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't then. It was in the 1890s when Jake Hoover was placer mining for gold on Lower Yogo Creek. Okay. And he finally collected enough of these things and sent this cigar box supposedly back to Tiffany's in New York. And this guy says, "Hey, man, them are sapphires." Sent Hoover a check for $3,000.
Yeah.
Back then.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the Yogo sapphire.
Do you know why this area is the only area you can find Yogo sapphires? Do you know that? Do you know why?
Well, there's lots of places you can find sapphires.
But Yogo sapphires.
Right. Yeah, this is the only place you can find Yogo sapphires. And this is the only, or one of the only places in the world where they are found in place in the lode. Just like this gold we were talking about that's in the veins. The Yogo sapphires were formed in a dike, and again, it eroded down, and they dribbled into the creek, and that's where Jake Hoover discovered them when he's placer mining. Then there was, once they started mining them, where they mined the creek out real quick, what was dispersed in the creek. And that wasn't the pay streak. Where the pay streak was right on that dike. And that dike is 5 miles long up there in the belts. And it's right where this dike came up in the Madison limestone and from way down in the earth, and it had the sapphires in it. And so that's where the most recent mining has gone on, is hard rock mining out of that dike. Going in and just like the underground mine.
And they still mine that, right?
Yep.
Off and on.
Yeah, off and on.
Is this solid?
Yep.
It's decently solid. I might set this right up here.
Yeah, we'll be busting stuff up in here.
Try
Now we gotta wait for our poker party to do that. I'll get a couple real weak old chairs that we can smack over across somebody's back. when
Right.
we're Getting a fight and just.
We could get some of that wood off that cabin. It'd fall apart pretty fast, wouldn't it, Greg? Well, you could see how we can get off on a lot of different stories here without getting to the main story.
Yeah, but that's leading to it. That's leading all to it.
Setting the stage. This 1879 deal, that they had this little gold rush up there.
Right.
In 1879 in this Yogo City, barely remnants of it. And it's up there, but it was a boom and a bust. So by like 1880 or 1881, and there was over 1,000 people there. There wasn't the gold, and the sapphires hadn't been found. Okay. There's a reason for that too. So Yogo Creek comes down out of the belts. Right. Here's this Yogo dike I told you about.
Right.
And there's a big canyon there where Yogo Creek eroded through that dike.
Okay.
So you don't find sapphires up here,
right,
where they were doing the gold. You find the sapphires down there.
Oh, interesting. So there's probably a lot of people looking up higher and wasted a ton of time looking for
yeah, for gold, not for sapphires, because nobody knew what sapphires were about.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when they did find the sapphires, they
it
probably
was all
wasted
down below.
Interesting.
But now, a little while ago, I couldn't think of a guy's name down here where the Spear Tea Ranch is. There was one fellow named Johnny Wurttenberg. He changed his name to Wirtz. Must have not liked people trying to stumble through his name. So we have a picture of him right over here too, because he was an old timer here. But he was down there in 1879, maybe even earlier, maybe 1878. And very nice place down there. And you have this Gorman Ranch just up the Gulch a little ways. But Johnny Wirtz had this little placer dig over on the hillside, kind of right by the road down there, if you know where to look. And he'd dug a ditch 800 feet long to get water to it, and he's plastering, but it never amounted to much. But this is in early 1879. So anyway, 3 prospectors, they'd had enough up there in the little belts at this Yogo find. So they're headed back to Junction City. Junction City was a renowned place on the Yellowstone River, right where the present-day town of Custer is.
Okay.
If you go across that bridge that goes across the Yellowstone, Junction City was right there. Not a huge city by any means, it didn't get as big as Maiden, but it was an important place because steamboats could get that far up the Yellowstone. And more importantly, the Northern Pacific was laying out its line to come up the Yellowstone. That didn't happen until 1883, but they were working on it prior to that. And Junction City is near where Custer is, and so the mouth of the Bighorn is in that vicinity. So in 1876, you had the Custer disaster, right?
Disaster.
Yep.
What's that?
1876 or 77, you had the Custer disaster, so that brought a lot of attention to that part of the Yellowstone.
What is that? Sorry.
When General Custer got it.
Oh, that. Sorry, I thought you were talking about
When he got
the
real stupid.
city had something wrong with it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I see
no,
what you're saying.
yep.
Okay.
So Junction City was an important
'Cause Custer wasn't in-
rendezvous point, So you had this stuff up on the Missouri River, like the place at the mouth of the Mussel Shell that really didn't turn into much. But then you had Carroll and Rocky Point and Wilder Landing and the first military installation in Montana Territory, which was at Camp Cook, which is at the mouth of the Judith River, where it dumps into the Missouri. So you had this river traffic up there and some river traffic going up the Yellowstone. They couldn't get as far as where Billings is. But anyway, so this Junction City was kind of a key little place. So these Skookum Joe Anderson and Davy Jones are two of these prospectors that had enough up in little belts, and they're headed back to Junction City for the winter. And there's a third guy. My grandfather couldn't remember that guy's name. He knew the other ones, but he couldn't remember that guy's name. But there was three of them. And so at some point when they're coming by the Judith, they decide to come up here, and this is in the early fall of 1879. And I don't know if they came up Warm Spring Canyon,
Right, or Maiden.
and went past Johnny Wirtz's place and knew about his placer dig or not. There's nothing recorded that states that. Other things is that they got around on the southeast side and came up in the vicinity where Gilt Edge would eventually be found, and went up a gulch. All this is unnamed, most of it. Come up a gulch that became Virgin Gulch over into Alpine. They came up here, and they went about a quarter of a mile from here, up beside the road. There wasn't no road, of course. And the three of them, two of them, they set up a little camp, which is now my front yard of my relative's place up here. That's where their camp was. This has been described by people that knew.
And that's just right out this window here.
Yeah, and so two of them went to digging, and one of them had to watch the camp. And not that the Indians are shooting arrows at them. People think, the Indians are shooting arrows at them and stuff. It wasn't that. It's just that, man, they'd be lurking around, and you couldn't leave anything. They'd come steal it, your livestock or whatever. So they dug a shallow placer shaft and ended up collecting what amounted to about a third of a mustard jar full of gold dust. So this was interesting. This was a strike. Apparently they didn't know about Johnny Wirtz's deal down here, but Johnny Wirtz's deal never turned into anything. But this looked good. So then they got caught between the Indians harassing them and an early snowstorm. They said, let's get the hell out of here. So they proceed to go to Junction City for the winter, okay? Gamble and do whatever they do, Button their lip, mum's the word, don't say anything to anybody. Over the winter, they put together 7 other guys. The names of most of these guys are available through that winter. In January, they were really itching, in total secrecy. They put together these 7 other guys, so it made a team of 10 people.
Yeah.
So in January of 1880, they want to get going to the new El Dorado. And so they cooked up a story, a little ruse, we've had enough. We're getting stir crazy in January. How you get your Chinooks, and so it looks kind of good. We're going out wolfing and see if we can get some buffalo. Yeah. All these other people said, "You guys are nuts." So,
because at that time there wasn't. The buffalo were on the decline, but a lot, right? They're not around that much. They're pretty hard to come by.
Not hard to come by, but it sure wasn't like it was 10 years before. But they're getting thinned out by 1880.
Oh yeah,
but they were still pretty prominent around here.
Okay,
that's what kept the Indians coming around here.
Okay.
So anyway, they come back here. And they couldn't get in the mountains, and I believe they either maybe tried to come out what became Maiden Canyon, or they might have come up what become Collar Gulch. But anyway, they just got up into the mountains, supposedly up to the top of Gold Hill here, but there was too much snow for their horses and stuff, spring snow. So they go back down and camp around the mouth of what becomes Collar Gulch and what became Fort Mcginnis. So this is in the spring, early spring of 1880. They finally get back in here in May. I think it was May. They finally get back in here and get to prospecting, get to work. Interesting. So at the same time, Granville Stewart, our famous Montana pioneer, you know, the grandfather of Montana as he's known, he's looking for a place to start this cattle ranch, the DHS cattle ranch. And he's scouring all over southern and eastern Montana. He really likes places down on the Yellowstone stuff, but there's too many Indians and potential reservations, so he doesn't like that. So early in 1880, he wanders in Flat Willow and kind of reconnoiters this place. He's traveling with a group that he puts together, and he's paying them and all that. And they actually got up on the divide, up McDonald Creek, up on the divide, and went down into this place that's going to become Lewistown.
Okay.
And it's full of Métis. They were camped there. The Métis were already there. So we got to look at that. But he had to get back to Helen on business, so they go back. He comes back in about a month. And so this puts him and these initial prospectors here at the same time. And then in the summer, you got the military looking for a place to put this fort. So all this is gelling all at the same time in the summer of 1880. Yeah. So, but we'll stick with the prospectors. Actually,
sounds like a whole nother topic to get on.
It is.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of placer ground over in Virgin Gulch, over by where Gilt Edge would come. But it wasn't very good, but Alpine Gulch was real good. Warm Spring Gulch here was fair, but Upper Maiden Gulch was pretty good. And Upper Maiden Gulch is where Skookum Joe Anderson actually started this little hamlet of Russell, R-U-S-T-L-E, right up there. And that's where present-day Camp Maiden is. The Girl Scout camp, you know where that's at?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, 1,000 feet directly east of that is where this little camp of Russell started, but that's the upper reaches of Maiden Creek. And there was some pretty good placer gold found up there. Apparently a quarter-ounce nugget was the biggest one that was found up here. But it didn't take long. By the fall of 1880, and these guys, what we got going on here is tents. We don't have anybody building buildings in 1880. You got tents. And Russell was one of the places where they got tents started at the mouth of Alpine Gulch. Tents started probably around here, but not known for sure. And the placer wasn't looking very good. Wasn't looking like we're not going to have a bonanza here. This is not the El Dorado. Yeah. So the ones that knew a little bit about hard rock mining, they start scouring around and going up higher on the mountains and starting to find these outcrops of this ore.
So is that where when we were up there a few years ago, we would see these little holes in the ground. Definitely not a full-on mine, but you'd see a little hole in the ground and a tunnel going off this way. Is that what they're doing? They're just trying to search for it up top?
Yep.
Okay. Is that the main mining operation looking for this, or is this people by themselves coming in trying to make it on their own?
Well, those people trying to make it on their own.
It was. Yeah.
But immediately.
So the big mine was a little bit later, right? We're not quite there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not very much later.
Very much later.
But remember, if you just think of this, Daniel. You see, you could take a gold pan, and if you're in the right country, that is all you need. You could take a gold pan. If you didn't have a shovel or anything, you could use that gold pan to scoop out what you needed. You could pan that, and when you found gold, you can put that in your pocket. Right?
Yeah, right.
You can go buy drinks. You can go do whatever with it.
Definitely. No.
You start developing a mine.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of what I was getting at is
Yeah.
were those little holes in the ground
Yeah.
going on at the exact same
Test
time as
pits.
the big mine, or were those were all before? They're all before. Both.
But
Okay.
these guys, when and Skookum Joe was one of the main ones, and Davy Jones, there was half a dozen of them that were the main boys that went and found these hard rock deposits. Skookum Joe was one of them, but that would be you going along and finding an outcrop that looks good. And in some of these places, like the Mcginnis and the Spotted Horse, hell, the Mcginnis was discovered on an outcrop that ran 30 ounces to the ton. When you got 30-ounce gold, you can see gold.
Oh.
It isn't
So
gold
you're
rock.
you're just seeing it on the face. of the rock.
It's ore that you pick up a piece of that ore and you look at it, and you're seeing gold.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And they knew enough about it to do that. But so they dig prospect pits, and then immediately, if you liked it, you had to put up a discovery. Put up a discovery with your name and all that on it, and you're claiming that ground. Then later you have to dig so much.
And how much ground are you claiming by doing that?
1,500 feet long by 600 feet wide.
Oh,
That's
not squares. It's rectangles.
right. That's the standard size of a patented.
So that's
Claim.
the map we were looking at.
Yeah.
You'd see those rectangles.
A lot of those,
Okay, I see.
a lot of those little pits you see are, like he says, the discovery. You got to show the government once you claim that you're working.
Yep. Yep.
You're working.
Okay.
And then you had so much time, and it's like 60 or 90 days after you made your discovery, and ideally, you make that discovery. Right here, you made this discovery. This is an ideal claim. I'll show you. So, boy, you got something here. You put up a stake or whatever with a notice on it that said you discovered it. Then you got 30 days to go out here and mark your corners.
Tobacco cans.
And ideally, you've made that discovery with the vein going right up the middle. Okay, that's ideal.
Right.
And then you can go put up your four corners,
Oh, I see.
and that you got 300 feet on each side
Of
of,
your
the
vein,
vein.
yeah.
600 feet by
Oh,
1,500
okay.
feet long, and then you got 60
Makes
days
a lot more sense.
to go record that. Because think of this: where did you have to go back then to record it? White Sulphur Springs.
White sulfur? Yeah. It was white sulfur.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I'd
So,
like to
you
know a
know,
lot more about that.
What they
I would've
usually
guessed hell
do
of
is
that.
they delegate
Do you wanna
one guy.
You want to hand me one too, so I don't have to
They
deviate?
kind of delegate somebody that they trusted to go handle that paperwork. But anyway, so then you're digging away, and gosh, if there's really something there, pretty soon you're finding a little more, and then, then if you're going to start mining, well, then you got to start getting sledgehammers and drill steel to drill holes. Then you need dynamite, then you need picks,
Yeah.
shovels. So right away you can see what's happening.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Just
So by-
escalates from there. Yeah.
So in the winter they didn't do much. I imagine it thinned out here. I don't know this. This is all speculation, but I bet some people spent some real rough
Winners out here.
winter here
Yeah.
in tents and shit.
Yeah, for the
but they
first
knew
few
how
years.
to do it then too.
For sure.
Right?
They were hard.
They were used to that.
We're pretty soft
Yeah.
nowadays. We're pretty soft.
So it wasn't until, and there was competition of where the town was going to be. A lot of people wanted it up here at Russell, up on top of the hill.
Up on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's buildings still left here. A lot of people thought Alpine would be the place. Well, Lewistown is starting to come together at this same time. But of course, that's too far away. When you're in those days, right, you needed your town right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So in the spring of 1881, Pike Landusky built the first log structure here in Maiden, I think in June of 1881, and I believe I know where it was. It was right back here, but that's speculation. But
Is that something we could on the map here in a little bit when we're done?
you got
point it
the
out?
you
Awesome.
get the general
Yeah,
vicinity.
we'll kind of have you point some stuff out
Yeah.
on this picture. Yeah.
So he builds the first log cabin, and I mean the place just takes off. It takes off. At this same time, down here where the old air base is,
Oh, right.
all them ruins,
Yeah, yeah.
the town of Andersonville starts out. Actually, it's called Georgetown in honor of George Washington.
And that's what, 10 miles? It's not
Huh?
even that. What? How far is that from here? 6 miles?
No, 3.
It's only 3. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You're going so
So-
slow on that pothole road.
Yeah, so that starts down there, and they soon changed the name of it to Andersonville in honor of Skookum Joe Anderson. Skookum Joe Anderson got a lot of recognition being the guy that discovered the place. He was quite a colorful guy. But anyway, so Andersonville's getting started down there, and they had a guy built a sawmill down there. That was very prominent. And they were down there low enough, they didn't need to be up here. They're down there, they got good water, more water for the boilers and for sawmilling and stuff. And Andersonville ended up being quite a little town. I have, one of my slides in my PowerPoint presentation shows that real clear, shows that air base from the air as it was in the 60s, and then I've outlined where Andersonville was.
Oh, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But Andersonville was short-lived. It kind of, when it had stores, it was a stage stop, and that's where the mail got delivered to in the early 80s. It wasn't until 1883, I think, that the Maidenites finally complained enough that the mail started coming up here. Otherwise, it only made it as far as Andersonville. But Andersonville was about a quarter mile long and had maybe 50, 75 buildings in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was established roughly when?
81.
81?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 81, 82. I think they named it in 82.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So-
And when did it stop being a town? How short-lived was it?
Well, it doesn't sound like it was doing too good by the mid to later 1880s.
So like 5
But there
years.
were still buildings down there. Probably when I was a kid, but we didn't recognize them for what it was. We didn't really know about this stuff, a lot of this stuff when I was a kid. But one of them buildings was tore down, and there's a big barn down there. It's the Tattywall barn. Still standing, got a big tin roof on it. A lot of the lumber that was salvaged from buildings in Andersonville was used to build that building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
So anyway, Maiden's getting its start in 81, and
81.
it just, boom, takes off, man.
Yeah.
And boy, by 82, there were a lot of buildings going.
Just actual year, or is this 8 months? How long did it take the
1882.
86, right?
Yeah.
86?
So there's
it's pretty.
fantastic photograph that Culver took in 1883.
That's on that hill right up here, huh?
Yeah.
Just right up here. That's a cool picture.
In 1883, looking up Main Street. And I
Nobody
guarantee
can
you,
hear you, by the way. Though.
I'll guarantee you, your camera or whatever you people got nowadays, I don't think they take as good a pictures as Culver took.
Oh, really?
Well,
yeah.
look at how blown up that is off of a postcard.
Yeah.
You got
Really?
pictures?
That's blown up off of a postcard?
Yeah, I have the original over in the house.
What?
Yes.
That looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I tell you, you see the quality of his pictures, the one he took looking up Main Street. You can read the signs on the buildings and shit.
Here, definitely when we're done, we're gonna go over these pictures a little bit. I want you to kind of point some stuff out on them. But
Well, we ain't got very fast. have we?
yeah, let's keep going here. That's a cool picture.
So,
Blown up off a
the town just takes off, right? And in 81, you start having money coming in here. Because you had to have people with money to develop these mines. Skookum Joe, they're done. And they're prospectors. They didn't want to do that anyway. They wanted to go find another mine.
Yeah.
Skookum Joe went on and spent the rest of his life basically down in the Beartooth. Not looking for the palladium and platinum deposit, but he was looking for the gold and silver down there. That's where Skookum Joe ended up. He ended up dying in Billings, broke.
Actually, in Billings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Most miners end up dying broke.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So anyway, it takes off, and then now you've got mining companies coming in here. Hauser and Holter, two very prominent Montana businessmen. They buy the Mcginnis mine from a guy named from two guys, Burke and Hill. They buy that, and I think they give them $15,000 for it. Now I ain't got my computer here. I'd tell you what $15,000 in 1881 would be worth today, and it'd be a nice chunk of money.
Maybe I'll, as this
Yeah.
podcast is going, I'll throw that on in the
You know?
corner.
And so then they start building mills and stuff. They start ordering all this stuff from back east that's being put together. By then, stuff from back east could make it to Bismarck, North Dakota on the Northern Pacific Railroad. From there, it was loaded on steamboats and brought up the Missouri. Very little of it to Junction City on the steamboats. It came up the Missouri. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, all this stuff here that you're looking at went to Fort Benton. That's not true. Why would they do that? All the stuff used to build Fort Mcginnis went no farther than Rocky Point. Why would they take it all the way to Fort Benton and then have to pack it back?
Right.
Yeah. So it's amazing when you see how fast they did stuff here. The mill down in Collar Gulch, where that big stone foundation is, they started building that in the summer of 1883, okay? So that means, somebody's down at Fort Mcginnis where the telegraph is, telegraphing the orders for all this machinery and iron and boilers and crushers and doorknobs and tobacco and everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So then that stuff being shipped and they start building, and a lot of the lumber used to build Fort Mcginnis was brought in. All the finished lumber and stuff, that wasn't cut and done locally here.
Oh, really?
A lot of that stuff, the doors and things like that, that was all brought in from back east.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. So back to our Collar Mill thing, and if you've seen a picture of that, I have a great one over at the house. It's like, whoa. They fired it up in November of 1883. That's how fast they put shit together. It just blows your mind.
Yeah.
There were guys crawling all over it.
Yeah.
24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Just wow.
I mean, the place would have just been
Maybe not
booming.
24/7, but
Imagine around
constant.
here, that's all you'd be hearing. Is carpenters.
Yeah.
You know them damn carpenters and how noisy they are, Greg?
Yeah.
Except them boys.
No skill.
I know, I was just going to say them boys, it was zip, zip, zip. Now it's ring.
yeah.
You carpenters.
Cordals.
Imagine how fast the city would go up.
Although you
nowadays.
modern guys got one thing going, at least shingling, you might be up there with an air gun just going.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, let's see, by 83, Maiden was sporting 154 buildings.
154.
Yep.
As you're talking, I'm not going to be on the mic, but I'm going to look at this because you're about to get into kind of the city here, right? You kind of.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do.
You're the one talking. I'm going to get some of this footage though as you're talking though. So 100 and how many?
Well, we're at Maiden, so maybe we ought to turn on the side lights.
What year is that? 87?
That's actually, I have revised these. This one is actually, I believe, 87, and this one is 88. Close enough, right?
This one's 87.
Yeah, I think it's really 88, but that's what happens when you. Now I'll show you here if you want to look. Do you need these lights on or not?
Actually, it's not too bad right here.
Okay, good. So, well, you got to orientate first, right?
Will this turn on?
Yeah.
That's
It makes a glare, but
yeah, it's not glary, but
see, I usually turn them on when I'm showing people.
not
But
that one. This one.
so this picture's taken in 1887, 1888. Maiden's on its way down.
It's on its way down at this point.
It's on its way down when this photograph is taken. Yep.
Okay.
It's waning. It boomed. It boomed about then.
Okay.
From here on out, it's going to be downhill. So this picture, here's the Mcginnis. Here's the Mcginnis mine and the mill up here, which was the mainstay of Maiden in the early years. The famous Spotted Horse mine is on the other side of Gold Hill, where the concrete dam is you drive by.
Okay.
And then much later, the Cumberland mine is located up here. All told, even up to today, out of Gold Hill, there's been over 400,000 ounces of gold produced. But back to Maiden. Maiden got laid out. Here was Montana Street coming through town.
And is this
Coming
the
up-
street that you're coming in on to go to your
Yes.
house right here?
Yep, sure is.
And then you turn just on the other side of those buildings right there, and that's
Main
where
Street.
We're at right here. That's this
We're,
room.
we're in a building. This building we're in was not here when this was taken.
Oh.
Maiden burned in 1905. Tom Carr built this building to replace his saloon. But this building we're in is about right here.
Okay.
Okay, right about there. This building here, that is what became my house.
Your house, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool.
This building is that first building you'll see right up the road out here.
Okay.
You can't see this building right now because of these big slash piles, but these were houses in Maiden, and later this one was my grandfather's garage. This one was his blacksmith shop and where he smelted gold bars. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the heart of town, right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Ballingers, well, they came here in 1883 and they built this very fine department store here, a general store. And there was 3 or 4 general stores. Here's another one here. But they built this one, and then in 1885 they decided to build a fireproof one. So they built this, which had their very elegant living quarters on the upper floor.
Okay.
And then in 87 they added this stone warehouse. Okay? This is the grave of 2 of their sons. A boy who died at 4 years old of the coup, I guess is what it was. And a boy, I believe, was 19, got implicated in some maybe cattle thievery over in the Gilt Edge country and killed himself. Oh. And they're buried up on that little knoll.
Right on that knoll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that building still there?
Oh no, it's long gone.
It's long gone.
You can't, I know where this is, but you can hardly see it.
Is there any sort of marking?
Nope.
No.
Nope, they're gone. When we were kids, we found a headstone that was broken in half. Yeah, we packed that off. We didn't know, you know. Yeah, we were all over this place. Of course, when we were kids, there was none of these trees here.
Right.
In this town site, yeah, there were none of these trees.
Huh.
Yeah. But, so that was the town, you know, and it was quite the place.
Now, isn't there a foundation over here that you're trying to save? Or keeping an eye on over here somewhere?
That's the Ballinger building.
Ballinger building.
Is it still there?
This.
Or some of the foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so I got good. We're moving forward. Okay, so we're gonna jump ahead to 1905, August 15th, 1905. The reported story is, the most reliable story, is a fellow was walking a gal named Maida home from a dance, which probably would have been up on this end of town. There was a roller skating rink up there. By the way, in 1905, there was probably 200 people living here, that's all.
That's it.
Yeah. There's still a lot of stores and a lot of things going on, but only a couple hundred people living here, okay?
Yeah.
So he's walking a gal home from a dance in the wee hours of the morning, supposedly flips a cigarette butt in the alley behind the Bullion Saloon, which would be right out here. And a gal that was opening her restaurant right up the street, 4:30 in the morning, sees this, shoots a gun. Everybody comes running. And I would say within a matter of a few hours, it was over.
The entire town burned?
Well, many stories say that, and that is inaccurate. They say the town was destroyed by a fire. That's not true. But what that fire did is it took 37 buildings out. So here's what I think it did. It did this, and it went up here.
Got all that line of buildings right there.
Well, it jumped over 2 of them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It
Okay.
didn't even hit 2 of those?
It jumped over 2 of them right in the middle of the damn thing.
What?
That's fire. So, and you guys know about fire. So then it comes down here, and then it gets her place, the stone building.
The fireproof one?
And then it took out this, and it took out this. It did not, and it took out the International Hotel,
barely
but it
missed
did
your
not
building.
get this,
Barely
and it
missed
didn't get any of this stuff.
Wow.
And I believe there was an east wind blowing. That's kind of what I think. August 15th, probably hot, dry. And August 15th, let me tell you, I can pump this creek, the head of Warm Spring Creek, with a garden hose and run it dry.
Really?
So, yeah, and they had wells around town, but these wells are slow recharging. So, and they had no fire department of any kind. And the story, and this is embellished, I believe, but it's a good story, that, boy, they're still running to Mrs. Ballinger's trying to get buckets to fight this fire. And when the fire got to Mrs. Ballinger's store, they all just dropped their buckets and went home.
Yeah.
That's an embellished story, but
Embellished.
there might be some little bit of truth to it.
It wouldn't have to be coming from the other direction.
Yeah, probably east wind because we're prevailing west wind. But anyway, it just wiped the thing out. And there is no photographs. There's a couple things that really intrigued me about that fire. Where did all the junk go? Because you know how fire is. You got all these stoves and buildings that had things in them. I've never found huge piles of where all this junk went.
Burnt rubble of.
Yeah. So a half a dozen businesses rebuilt.
So what do you mean by that? Do you think it's a conspiracy of some sort? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. I just, where'd all the junk
Yeah, it's just
go?
all gone.
They had to take it to a pit somewhere, nobody knows where.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
long
So,
lost junk.
so she rebuilt right across the street that really badly fallen down building.
Oh, okay.
Yep, she rebuilt. Tom Carr rebuilt here. Mrs. White, she converted this into a hotel boarding house. It hadn't burned, but there was about a half a dozen businesses that rebuilt, and Tom Carr lasted the longest. This saloon, see right up there on the back bar? See that book up there?
Yeah.
That's his ledger that's maybe starts in 1912 or 13, he's a new book. And boy, you get to 1917, when the mines are closing, less and less business. And boy, by the summer of 1918, it's slim pickings. And in November, he boarded her up and left. Yeah. Left it all intact. Yeah.
So what year is this? This is 85, you said?
This one is,
86.
this one is before that one.
Without getting the glare.
Yeah. You know, I figured that out. Trying to date these pictures, that's a challenge.
Why is it a challenge?
Well, all I got is newspaper articles and photo forensic work. So I didn't know which one of these pictures was first. See that tree?
Yeah.
See this stump? And that picture was obviously first.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, I do a lot of photo forensic work, really. Yeah.
Yes, I.
There's a lot of work with these wires, so I'm gonna sit back down.
But this is a good picture because it shows the Maiden Brewery.
Oh, the brewery?
Yeah, that's the only known picture of the Maiden Brewery right there.
Glare, but we can see the
See it?
Oh, that's the brewery.
That's the Maiden Brewery, and Louis Ledamp, I think I pronounced that right. He built that in 1884, I think, and like a month later, burned down. Very suspicious fire. Yep.
Wow, that's
So he rebuilt it, and then he moved to Lewistown in about 1886, but other people bought that, and that thing was capable of making 10 barrels a day in 1901. Yeah. And then another thing this picture shows was the Maiden Smelter down here, which
Just
was
past
a
it.
total flop, but that's the only photographs of those you'll ever see.
Oh, interesting. So this one here is looking west.
Yep, down Warm Spring
This is
Creek
looking
Canyon.
west, and then this one's looking like
East.
northeast-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he took
Okay.
that photo from up here, and he took that photo three different times over the years.
Yeah.
Okay, and he took 2 of these. But now, when we did this logging a couple summers ago, we've got a road up here, and it goes right by where I'm sure Culver was when he took that photo.
But nowadays the trees are way too tall to take that same picture. With
Yeah.
Like you said, a drone.
You want to know another cool thing about this picture?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh shoot, I need to have this on me. Can't hear me. 1 second. This is annoying, but it's way better audio.
Oh yeah. So, cool thing about this picture, well, you get looking around. There's a woman here on this back
yeah,
porch.
there's a little girl right
okay, there's a guy riding a horse up here. But what is more intriguing? Here's a buggy, a horse and a buggy here. Pull in on them. Yeah, a horse and a buggy. And I believe this was the post office at the time. I don't know that for a fact, okay? But here's what's interesting. See right there over the roof of this building?
Yeah.
That is a group of men and boys.
Oh shoot. I gotta get that. There we go.
That's a
Men and
group
boys.
of
Okay.
men and boys right there above my pointer
Yep.
looking up the hill.
At this person taking a picture.
Culver. So here's my theory. Let me embellish this a little bit. Culver says that morning, yeah, I'm going up to take another one of them pictures up there. Yeah, I should be set up by 10, whatever. You know, if you want to get in the picture, whatever. Well, Jesus, you ever packed around one of them box cameras? I have, so he's probably running a little late, and I imagine at 10, all these people, I bet the streets were full.
Yeah, maybe.
Wanted to get in the picture,
Maybe.
and he's running a little late, and they say, I'm going back in the saloon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's
ain't it?
interesting.
Yeah. I like
I want to
it.
know. That would be really interesting to know what day of the week this was. Was this
Yeah.
like? Was this
There's only
a
one
work
picture that
day?
I
Was
have
this a-
dated to within a couple days.
right.
The
Exactly.
one that he took right out front here.
outside.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go over more pictures here in a little bit, but yeah, let's get more of the timeline, and then we'll end at least the audio portion of the podcast.
Well, so then 1888 things start winding down. The Mcginnis is really struggling, having trouble operating. As a matter of fact, the mill closed down, I think, in 1889. Somebody stole $20,000 worth of amalgam out of it. And things are struggling. The Spotted Horse is operating, and then Perry McAdow closes it, and then he's operating it, and then it closes, you know, so things are typical mining, hit and miss, hit and miss. And there's a few things going on. The good stuff, the easy getting, really rich stuff, the majority of it was up high in these mines.
Right.
And that's the cheapest to get, up high. Once you start this in depth and start encountering water and stuff, it starts costing you more money to do this.
Right.
At the same time, a lot of these same investors that have been putting money into these things, they're growing old. They have other things going on. Samuel Hauser, his bank collapsed in the late 1890s. He had invested in the DHS ranch over here that Granville Stewart located. They lost their ass in the winter of 86, 87 when all their, like 60% of their cattle were killed. So you have different things happening. And you also have the price of gold is locked in there at $20.67 an ounce. And everything's costing more. And the big deal was the expense of freighting here. Because we're still restricted. Railroads got to Great Falls in like 1889, okay.
Right.
So that's closer, it's 100 miles from here to Junction City, and it's only 50, 60 miles up to the river, but you're fighting ox teams and this gumbo and all this shit, very restrictive. So when the railroad gets to Great Falls, That's a big advantage. Then you have a lot of freight coming into central Montana from Great Falls. And then when they build out to Armington Junction to go up to Nyhart in the late 1880s, early 1890s, then that really turns the main freighting route. You ordered your freight from back east, it came by rail, maybe to Great Falls, or Billings, and came from that way. But that really improved things. Then in 1903, the jawbone hits Lewistown, Montana, and that dramatically changed things for getting freight here. But it wasn't until 1903. So otherwise you're paying these exorbitant prices for freighting and shit.
Right.
And getting a little harder to find the ore. Some of the better pods had been mined out, some of the rich high grade. So these mines start, faltering.
So why were they shipping in all these doors and stuff from other places? Why weren't they making them here? Cheaper, right? Wouldn't it be cheaper?
You're gonna make a cast iron stove here in Maiden?
Well, that's different. But like a door, right? You can make a door here.
Probably when you got carpentry shops and stuff established.
But it wasn't quite established yet.
Right, okay. But I mean, he built this in 1905, but you go before that, you go look around here at 95% of what's here, other than the modern day stuff, it all got here on a wagon. Everything, and the person has to use their imagination. I mean, we're talking from chewing gum to
95%.
boilers.
95%. Wow.
All of it.
Wow.
How else did it get here?
Crazy.
The windows.
So is that considered freight? Is that what you're saying? Or is that is considered?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the windows, the ornate trim, all that stuff was built in New York City, along with the taco sauce.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
The Bullion Saloon.
Wow.
Which opened in December of 1883, was like, whoa, this class act saloon. And it had a bandstand in it, the whole 9 yards, but it had this, I forget how big, but these big mirrors for the back bars, which wasn't that uncommon here, but all that shit got here on a freight wagon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, because
The mirror Eddie's Corner bar came up too. It was like,
Dad, you're not.
Yeah.
trying to talk into it.
Well, this is all part of it. I'm not cutting this out. So.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff.
Yeah, the mirror Eddie's Corner. I remodeled that bar a couple times, and it's I want to say it's 12 feet long.
Yep.
It was.
Yep.
That came up on the Missouri River.
Yep.
But so,
And Tom got drunk about 20 years ago, and he threw a shot glass into it and busted, and that's why it's in 3 pieces now. It's been added on to.
oh.
Otherwise, it was one full piece,
Oh, really?
4 feet high by 12 feet long.
Wow.
I'm the one I took that apart and built all that framework and set it back up in there.
That means, Mr. Camp, that you can certainly fix my old cabin. Okay. back on subject.
Yeah,
If you want to talk, make sure that's
I think so.
within 10 inches.
Yeah, so,
It's just hard to hear.
but now, so the mines, but they're always promised, just like today. It's just no different today. Maybe we're going to get a mine deal going, okay?
Yeah.
So back then, though, it was much more prevalent because everything was still in the mines. Okay, the pumps, maybe it just closed down. The mills were there. The Mcginnis mill up there, the Spotted Horse mill. Then after 1910, the Cumberland mill. So the mills. So geez, if you had a big checkbook, and I'm wanting to peddle you to my Mcginnis mine, of course I'm going to say, now I tell you what, Daniel, this is the place for you. We were mining really good ore down there, but then they quit giving us money, and we didn't have enough for more development work, but I'll let you in on this mine, and the mill's right there to go with it, and you're a rich guy with a big checkbook. You say, yeah, I'll take that on pretty soon. You hire, there's 10 or 15 guys working up there, and their families, and the same thing as happens over at the Spotted Horse. Somebody invests some money there. There's another crew of up to 20 guys, 50 guys, their families. Then Maiden has a little boom,
Mm-hmm.
and then pretty soon they work out a little ore just as a stock scam or whatever, and that goes away, you know, and the next deal comes along. But there were times in there where people made money. Of course, wage earners, they were making money. People made some money with the mines. Yeah.
No, wasn't a lot of the gold up here part of the reason they didn't continue? Is it's flake and small
flake,
and powder
yeah.
gold. It's not a lot of chunks.
And once you mined all the stuff from up top, then you're getting down into the powder, right? And it just got worse from there.
No.
Okay.
But what ties in, Greg, with what you kind of said? Let's talk about high grade and low grade. Okay, high grade. Here's this piece of ore that I talked about earlier that runs 20 ounces to the ton. We're gonna see gold there. Might be like somebody took a spray paint can of gold spray paint and went.
Yeah.
It ain't all gold, huh?
Right.
Okay. Then you get into low grade, medium grade, 1 ounce per ton or a half ounce per ton and under. You really can't see the gold. Maybe under a microscope you can. Now, the way the old timers got the gold, when they first got the gold, this was a process that was available to them, was through gravity separation or amalgamation. Gravity separation is no different than the guy with the pan.
Right.
That's gravity, what you're doing.
Yep.
Okay, well, with these mills, you had a different machinery, kind of crude, but machinery that would do gravity concentration, maybe a belt that ran at a slow speed and the ore pulp went on it after you crushed it, because you had to crush this rock up to liberate the gold, whether it's fairly good pieces of it or just fine, and the heavier pieces stick to that belt, right? So that's a vanner, concentrator, things like
And all
that.
the gold stays at the bottom. Yeah.
The gold's heavy, so it lays on the belt where there's lighter stuff, because you got a little water on it. That lighter stuff just kind of gets washed away. But the gold with its weight, it goes, I'm staying right on this belt.
Oh, I see.
They adjust the angle of the belt up and dumps into the launder.
Okay.
But the primary way was with amalgamation, and amalgamation is where you use quicksilver, mercury. Mercury has this affinity for attracting other metals, gold, silver, copper, different metals. It's got this affinity to do that. And once it does that, you take mercury and put particles of gold in it. It forms an amalgam. The gold joins up with the mercury, and it becomes amalgam. So there the process is you crush this ore as fine as possible, and what the methods they had primarily were the stamp mills, which I have one.
I was
here.
about to ask, you have one up in this building
Yeah,
here. Yeah,
I have one.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
So
Yeah.
the ore was crushed, and it's in a pulp at this point. It's with water, okay? And once it gets crushed fine enough to pass through a screen, depending on how fine they're crushing it, it went out onto these, in the case of the Mcginnis mill, the tables were 7 feet wide and 14 feet long, big tables, sloped to them, and those tables had copper sheets on top of them. You can take mercury and smear it on copper, and it sticks to the copper, okay? It amalgamates to it,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
So then you have this thin layer of mercury fresh on these copper plates. You could crush this ore real fine and liberate the particles of gold and silver right in this pulp and flow them over. They attach to the mercury.
Okay.
Make sense?
This was all before they knew that mercury was insanely dangerous to handle.
Mercury is dangerous
it not?
to handle.
Is it not? I could have swore it is.
Vapors will kill you.
The vapors
Slowly.
from mercury? What?
Yeah, you could take mercury. When we were kids, we used to buy it at the.
Isn't that bad for you though?
Huh?
Don't eat it.
Just don't eat it? I could have swore, I've always just been told that even handling mercury will absorb through you. And
No, when we
that's
were
just what I was
kids,
told.
we
That's
bought
just
it.
what I was told.
I know, but that's how hype is. What do you know about cyanide?
I guess.
That's the
I
one
guess.
that-
Same
what I'm
deal.
told.
Yeah.
When you're using this mercury, is this something you can recover, or is this
Yes.
you use it and it goes
Yes.
back into like the water systems?
No,
What's
no,
going
no.
on?
You want to get all of you can back.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, so
So they
you're
do
doing
have the
this
process of getting
process,
it back, okay.
and the guy running the stamp mill, he knows what he's watching, and he sees the gold coming off, or by assaying, they know that, hey, this plate's loaded up, so they shut down that set of stamps. Maybe the other ones are still going. Anyway, they shut it down, take squeegees, squeegee all that mercury off of there, end up with a ball, probably that big from cleaning the table, that big, that weigh about 20 or 30 pounds.
And that's gold.
Heavy.
Gold?
It's amalgam.
Oh, okay.
Then you take that amalgam and you retort it. You generate enough heat to where you burn the mercury off into a vapor, but you have a retort, just like a still, where you recover all the mercury, the clean mercury you can. You recover all that so you can reuse it, right?
Yeah.
But you have burned, so you have gotten rid of the vast majority of the mercury, and then you're down to this ball of goo, which is your gold and silver combined. It looks goldish, silverish. Then you pour that into a brick, and then all that was sold to the U.S. Mint. So then
So it's not just gold.
No, it's gold, silver, and maybe some tramp metal. And that is called doré, D-O-R-E, bullion at that point. Doré is combined gold, silver, maybe some tramp metals. Then you drill that, take samples of it so you know what the gold and the silver content is, but then that's sold to the U.S. Mint, where they refine it down further into $9.99 fine gold and $9.99 fine silver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
And this smelter that was in the picture down the canyon, it didn't last very long. And why?
Well,
Were they taking it somewhere else to have it smelted, or what?
that was a promotion.
Great question.
They thought, so this is 84, they were having, what we really need is the base metals, okay? We got precious metals we're talking about, gold and silver. But you also got lead, and you go up north of Judith Peak, you go into Armels and stuff, you got copper. Okay, so you got the base metals and the precious metals. Well, this smelter was designed mainly for the base metals. But along with the base metals, when you're mining lead and copper, around here you probably got some gold and silver, so it was supposedly going to be capable of recovering the gold and silver and the lead and the copper. So they said, we've got to have a smelter here. That's the only way we can save this town and keep us going. So the locals put up the money to do it. Like $10,000, yeah. And all this is very nicely documented in the Mineral Argus, because this place had a newspaper. It had William Culver taking pictures, and it had a newspaper for 3 years. So this is all documented. So they do this, and then they struggled trying to find somebody to run it. Finally, the only ore it ever treated that I know of is the Guys brothers, the forefathers of young Vincent Guys here in Lewistown, my former friend Jack Guys. The Vincent Guys and his brother Richard had the cave mine in Armels Creek, and they hauled 80 wagon loads of ore in. And I think that's all that ever went through that smelter, and that's the slag that's down there to this day. So that smelter, it was closed by 1885. Then they have it for sale, the equipment in it, and then it drops off the news and don't know what happened to it.
Oh, wow.
But it was a flop.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, a little change of pace here. What was the interaction with Native Americans at this time?
Oh, and the newspaper accounts, again, 83 through 86, the Mineral Argus was printed right across the street here in Maiden. So there's good accounts in there of a couple, 3 or 4 panics. Somebody rode into town and said the Indians are over in the moccasins stealing stock, and a bunch of people go chase the Indians off. Incidents like that.
And then in the accounts, did they actually chase Indians off, or did they go out there and there was just nothing there?
Most of the time there was nothing
Nothing there. Yeah.
And
yeah.
and what else did they do? Fort Mcginnis.
That's why I was getting to this.
And Fort
Yeah,
Mcginnis
yeah.
became, you read the articles about Fort Mcginnis? Man. Why do we even have this fort here?
Exactly.
These people
Yeah, I remember you
don't
telling us
do
about
anything. And if you follow the story, it's the exact repeat of history today. It's bureaucracy run amok. So there's the military without any real marching orders to really go do anything about this. So they could go track down the Indians and say, hey, we need those horses back that you stole. And now you guys go back to your reservation up at Havre or wherever. Yeah.
What a crazy time.
So that was going to be my
Crazy
next
time.
question was there any hookers here back then? Whores, they would be called. And did the
Whores.
Fort Mcginnis people ever come up here and utilize that situation?
Undoubtedly. But there's not much, there's nothing written about whorehouses here. It just goes without saying. Now that one building, when you drive through Gilt Edge, that was a documented house of pleasure. But in Maiden, sure, undoubtedly there was whores. There was a lot of activity with soldiers here.
They'd come up Collar Gulch.
Yes. And
That's eerie. Going on, walking on that road and just kind of picturing the traffic with the soldiers going up that road.
Oh, in Collar Gulch?
Really
yeah, I
eerie.
remember.
Now, wasn't there a bar halfway down through there too? Or a couple of them?
We're talking about the same Gulch, right? You just go over the top. Okay,
Yep.
the gate. Okay.
Yeah, the Silver Mountain Saloon. So picture this. Now, there was no alcohol except for officers. They could get alcohol at the fort. Mind you, Fort Mcginnis was a very modern fort. Gas street lamps, water system, a lot of stuff. But so if it was you and I and we got a weekend pass, well, we got to head up Collar Gulch, right where you get off the reservation. That's where the Crystal Mountain Saloon was. And I don't know for absolute, but it's on one of them flat places, not the one where you set up the camp. I think it's that next flat place on my property below there. You know, so, and...
Is that where you go off to the cliff? Is that that?
No, that'd be another mile down.
yeah.
Oh, further. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the Crystal Mountain Saloon was right by where the stone foundation is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just east of it. So then we'd wet our whistle there, right? And we'd walk on up out of Collar Gulch, and the road didn't go where the present Camp Maiden Road goes. It was a different road. But anyway, we'd walk up there, and we'd walk over to Professor Wyman's joint, Bluebird Saloon in Russell. And not only could we have some drinks at Professor Wyman's, and I have a picture of his place,
Okay.
the Bluebird Saloon. Not only could we do that, Professor Wyman was renowned for a ventriloquist. And he did shows. He did shows at Fort Mcginnis. He did shows at Maiden. He did shows in Lewistown.
Interesting.
But hey, yeah, we could stop there and have a toot. And then it was just down Cambric Gulch, this gulch, right into the top of Main Street. And you could start hitting the joints, and I think we'd be pretty oiled by the time we got down here, wouldn't we?
It's so interesting that you can drive between these places right now with the road and our present day vehicles within a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
But back then, that was
Yeah.
hours apart, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Days. It was a problem.
Probably days.
well, to walk, if you were going to walk from Fort Mcginnis over there, that'd take you 2-3 hours.
That's just right up the hill, I feel.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That'd take you 2 or 3 hours.
This is only 140 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blowing my mind. We're talking about gas lanterns for the streetlights.
Yeah, Fort Mcginnis.
Oh, that's so cool.
Fort Mcginnis.
And that was on a reservation? Is that what you said?
Fort Mcginnis was the last fort built in Montana. They built 5 of them during that era after the Custer debacle.
Right.
Okay. And they were all much too late to do any good for the Indians. And Fort Mcginnis was a joke for being way too late to do any good.
Were you saying that they built it because they thought there was more threats than there really were? Is that
Actually, because the federal government had promised this stuff back in the early 1870s.
Oh.
Okay? They promised, we'll get you these forts in Montana. We've got a couple forts, Fort Ellis over at Bozeman, but now that's very populated there, so we don't have the Indian threat there. But this beautiful mussel shell Judith River Basin country, that's trying to be settled, and we need a fort there really bad. But this is all talk that's starting in the early 1870s. Okay, so I'm telling you, what we're experiencing today with the government and stuff is absolutely nothing different than back then.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Bureaucracy, bureaucracy, funding, Congress. So it isn't until the late 1870s when they finally appropriate the money and stuff to comply with these promises they'd been talking about for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it only operated 10 years.
Fort Mcginnis.
Yep.
Oh, huh.
10 years and they
And then we're gone.
gone.
Yeah. There's still structure there, right?
Nope.
There's nothing there?
Oh, there's stuff there. There's building foundations.
Oh, okay.
I think if you walk through it, you'll see some.
Go there on Google Earth. Go there on Google Earth.
I plan on having some sort of Montana map kind of locating thing as you're talking right now. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely be locating where Fort Mcginnis is.
I don't think I included that in here. No, Fort Mcginnis was quite the spread. That was it.
Oh,
This-
okay.
This is about 3/4 of a mile long, about a half mile wide. Google Earth, you can see these building
Those three?
foundations as plain as
Oh,
day.
all those in that area.
This one here, let's see, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. This one here, that was the commanding officer's house. That's
Okay.
right behind the courthouse in Lewistown.
Oh, so they moved.
James Fergus bought it at the auction in the 1890s and had it disassembled and moved and rebuilt there. There was a number of these buildings that were
Really?
purchased at auction.
Right behind the court. What house is this exactly?
You can't miss it, just on Washington Street or Broadway. Broadway. Yeah.
The officer, it's on the corner of 7th
And Broadway.
Montana.
No, 7th and Broadway. There's
There's
another one.
There's another one came from there, 7th and Montana, I believe.
Yes, and that was another officer's quarters.
Officer's quarters.
That one there's that one there. And some people think there's one more in town,
Is
too.
this the stone one behind
No.
the courthouse? Yeah, they couldn't have moved that.
No, it's wood. The only thing that was stone was the guardhouse. Yeah, it was quite the place.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
So why? It started 1880 is when things really started getting booming here. Maybe 1881. 81.
Yep.
When
Yeah, I
did-
mean, they came in here. This Skookum Joe first discovered it in '79. Got the hell out of here. Came back with 10 people. Didn't take long, and so now we're into the summer of '80, right? 1880. Didn't take long. Pretty soon, lots of people started coming. Tents, this and that. 81, the first building gets built here. Yeah, but you had in these 1880. I forgot to tell you about Nelsonville too. That was the tent city over by where Gilt Edge would eventually
just
be
on the other
built.
side of the mountain here.
Yeah, Nelsonville. So you had Nelsonville, tent city, and probably people set up bars and somebody'd bring in groceries and stuff. Then you had Alpine, then you had Russell, and you had Spotted Horse, which is right over here at the junction in Maiden Canyon, where you either turn and go up by the Spotted Horse Dam or come up past my portal. That was a little community there too.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you had people kind of scattered around. And who knows, wintertime come. I mean, Lewistown by 1880 is just starting nothing like Maiden. I don't know how much Lewistown got going in 80 or 81, 82 more, But
The
you had
jun-
these settlements.
The junior high. What's the date on that? 1920?
22.
22? 22? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it really started getting established late or after 1900s, Lewistown.
No.
Not 1900s,
no.
right?
It whooped Maiden out in 1886 for the Fergus County seat of Montana Territory in '86. And in '86, after that happened, Culver moves to Lewistown, the photographer, but he kept a studio here, and he had a studio at Fort Mcginnis, but he moves to Lewistown. The Mineral Argus, it moved to Lewistown, became the Fergus County Argus. Ledant, he sold his brewery by 1890, I say, went to Lewistown. So Lewistown started.
Lewistown grew after Maiden fell?
Yep.
Interesting.
Kind of in unison.
What?
Yep.
Oh, that's really interesting. When did they... Lewistown on a license plate is number 8.
Yeah.
When did they decide that? That would have been later on.
Modern day.
Like
modern day. Yeah. I don't know.
Because at that, what that means is at that time, Lewistown would have been the 8th biggest city, right? At that moment.
Yeah, that's what that place used to mean.
Population of the county.
Of the county. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, and then Lewistown would have just been the capital of that county, or what?
County seat.
County seat.
I believe.
And it's definitely not 8 anymore.
No, I believe Maiden still had more people than Lewistown when this county seat thing went on.
Seriously?
But there's politics involved here too. So you had James Fergus, and you had these cattlemen and ranchers. Okay. Well, some of them were also involved in mining, but you had your cattle and ranching industry, and you had your mining industry. Well, the cattlemen, why would they want to come all the way up here to this town up here in the mountains when you got this Lewistown kind of
down
growing?
In the bottom.
Yeah, down in the bottom.
Yeah.
And you think about that too. Yeah.
Gorgeous river running through it.
Well, yeah. And why fight the altitude and the weather
when you have,
in these high
you're
places?
in the center of 3 mountains, 4 if you want to include the belts off at the distance.
And as technology grows, in 1880 there was no stagecoach here, right?
Okay.
By I'd say
here
82,
here in Maiden,
right? Yeah. By 82, I'm sure you had mail service and stagecoach service down to Andersonville, and by 83, it's here, and pretty soon you got daily stages from Junction City. Of course, it takes them a couple days, but through Maiden up to Fort Benton, you have all these stage routes. So your population's getting to diversify. In other words, you don't necessarily, if you own the Mcginnis mine, you don't necessarily got to live in Maiden, do you? You're a highfalutin businessman. I might want to live down there in that Lewistown.
Yeah.
I can just take the stage up to Maiden,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Huh.
And then early part of the 1900s, automobiles. I got this great picture of Kendall. That's a fantastic picture for a number of things. You're looking up McKinley Avenue, that was the main street. It's a big celebration or something. And here's these buggies, hundreds of buggies lined up on both sides of the street with their drawbars up because they went there for a 4th of July celebration or whatever. You can't leave your horse standing out there hooked up to a buggy all day. So they went to the livery stable. But here coming down the street, and my friend Fred Ide identified it, is the 1906 Franklin, I think. Yeah, one of the first cars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then think of the boom when all of a
have been
sudden you
around.
got the railroad there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
People were harping, there was businessmen up here that were harping, well, we needed a railroad up here. And when the Milwaukee then started expanding out of Lewistown and going to Hilger and up north with their branch lines, their first target was Kendall. They were going to build a railroad up to Kendall. Well, Kendall started petering out before it happened, but had Maiden, these mines produced more, been more base metal where there would have been a lot of traffic with hauling concentrates and stuff, there would have been a railroad up here. I often look at that when I drive up here. I'm plotting out where the railroad would be,
Yeah. Crazy.
And then people hung on here. My grandparents were here until 1957. My grandfather came here in 1895. Spent his life here.
1895.
Yep. Yep. So, and through the 90s, through the 1890s, you have this intermittent mining activity, right?
Wow.
Through the 1900s up until 1920, you have intermittent mining activities, sometimes employing maybe 100 people are working up here at the mines, at the 3 or 4 different mines.
And each one was owned by somebody different. It wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, that sounds like a lot of competition in one area.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
These mines, there's one time where the Mcginnis and the Spotadors were owned by the same company. But that was only once, and there's only one time in the history of Gold Hill, the Mcginnis, Spotadors, Cumberland, Kentucky Favorite,
And that's just
Gold Hill.
that's that knob right there.
Yeah. There's only one time in its history that it was under the control of one company, not owned by one company, but under the control of one company, and that was 1986 through 1989, when we had the last major mining activity up here, and there was well over 100 people employed up here at that time.
Yeah. All traveling in to work.
Except folks like me that lived here. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Lewistown.
Spotadors.
Yeah.
Mainly Spotadors.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Did you have a question a second ago, Dad?
Well, back to the
I'm gonna take a piss. Answer his question.
stagecoaches. There was a route from Box Elder Creek over the top
Yep.
to Fort Mcginnis, and then there was one going from Fort Mcginnis up the backside of Ruby Gulch, backside of where we live.
Yep.
Come out. That's,
Yep.
That's called the stagecoach route.
Yep. Yep. Sure was. And so yeah, you had north, south, east, west. There was a lot of stagecoaches. That's a whole story in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got yourself a hell of an editing project.
Yeah, you should have seen I did a podcast with an old professor of mine, and he researches cave paintings in Montana, and he blew my mind at how many cave paintings there actually were.
Cave.
Like
painting.
paintings,
Oh.
like old Native American paintings.
Yeah,
and they consider just like
Bear
a face.
Gulch.
Exactly. I never knew about Bear Gulch until I sat down with him and talked to him.
Yeah.
And I've lived a few miles from it my entire life.
Yeah.
I never knew.
The pictograph deal,
Pictograph Caves outside of Billings.
Yeah.
And then Bear Gulch.
just up Forest Grove.
That's Bear Gulch, right?
Is that?
Yes.
I think so.
I believe so.
I've never been to
I've
Bear
never been
Gulch.
there.
I read something doing research for that podcast.
Yeah.
I read that there's a few thousand paintings in that Bear Gulch.
Yeah.
It's insane. That's crazy. I never knew. I never knew.
Yeah.
So my point though is about 12 minutes into an hour and 40-minute long podcast, my camera stopped working on the camera I had set up on him.
Did you know it quit?
I did not know. So I was recording the audio, so I have all the audio. What I did was I overlaid cave paintings throughout the world for the last hour and 30 minutes. So it's an hour or 30 minutes of just a slideshow of all these paintings and cool paintings. So that took a lot of time.
You better
took a
not
lot of
have
time.
any technical glitches going on here.
I hope so, but at the same time, we're talking about electronics and sometimes
Yeah,
you
but
just
we're
don't
talking about you young folks that know how to run this
young
stuff.
folks.
I
love it.
I am expecting.
Good point. So this is at
perfection.
this is out an hour and
Did you even turn it on?
Yeah, we're good. Hour and 22 minutes.
Start over.
Hour 22 minutes. This one is at hour 43. So both of these are still working. When I checked it, when I was working with him, it said 12 minutes, and we are an hour and 40 minutes in. So they're working. We're good. But it has happened before, so it sucks.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we'll make it work. Anyways.
Technical glitches.
Anyways. And so let's just finish up with the podcast portion of this, and then maybe show us around, show us that crusher and stuff like that.
Yeah.
After this.
Yeah. Well, where are we going now with Maiden?
Well, let's just kind of finish up. What would be the last few things? I mean, we kind of touched on the timeline of when it was built and when it fell. I mean, when did it finally not be
The
considered?
post office closed in 1921.
1921. So it was a good almost 30 years.
but yeah, but what, you know, that means in 1921,
No,
there
that
would
would
have
50
been
years.
there would have been my grandparents living here with their family. There would have been, and in the area, let's say, you know, within a mile of here, half a dozen families probably.
Okay.
No store. I think Mrs. Ballinger, this closed in 1918, Tom Carr's
And
Saloon.
this was the rebuild of the bar after the fire.
Right, and his original bar, I believe, was on Main Street. And that might have been the Shamrock. This was never known as the Shamrock Saloon.
Oh, okay.
This was the Tom Carr Saloon. And he closed it. A little side trip here. Mrs. White, who is this elderly lady,
Do you mind?
that's Mrs. Anna White. That's my mother, Selma Hanley. And that's my mother's dog, Tony. And they're sitting on the old porch right here.
Just right outside here.
Yeah. So anyway, Mrs. White came to Maiden in like 1884. And she was an industrious person. She had a store and a restaurant here. And then she established it in a vacant building over here, quite a nice building, and a boarding house and a cafe and stuff. And in 1927, so there was still a little action around here. Well, she was living there, and the fire started in March 7th. Real high wind was blowing.
A different fire?
Huh?
A different fire?
Different fire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that fire started in her place. The mine that was active at that time was the Tail Holt up on Big Grassy Peak, and that's where my grandfather and all the men was up there working, a crew of, you know, half a dozen guys or whatever. Okay. So that fire wiped out her hotel, burned buildings in between, jumped over that building that's standing right there by my brother's pickup, jumped over that and burned down my grandfather's assay office on the other side, jumped across the street and burned down a house across the street. So Mrs. White then,
Fire's funny.
she moved in here. And this was this boarded up,
It didn't get to the
abandoned
forest
saloon.
at all?
Pardon?
It didn't hit the forest at all?
No,
Just houses?
no. The last big forest fire here was 1991, but before that it was 1919.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it just jumped building to building.
Okay.
But so anyway, then she moved in here and she lived in here, and I knew a guy that said, "Oh yeah, Mrs. White." Oh, Russell Tattywall.
Oh, yeah.
You remember Russell? Yeah, Mrs. White. Yeah, I was in there. She had a bed back behind that barn, living in there. Oh, she got a kick out of Russell. He's quite a guy. But anyway, she was living in here, and she died in the mid-30s. And then my grandfather, after he lost his assay office, he'd established another one. Then he moved his assay office into this building. So he died in 57. I was born in 48, so I was 8 or 9 years old when he died. But I remember as a kid being in here with him assaying in here. And this place was way different. There was that flue there. There was a big assay furnace there where you got to bring the samples up to 2,000 degrees to melt them. Okay. So that'd be going. There's workbenches. There's a crusher back here. This room behind you, that was his scale room. See them heavy-duty posts that the bench is on? Mm-hmm. That's because he had his intricate balances for weighing gold beads there.
Oh,
and
so
you couldn't have the building shaking or anything while you're doing that.
Right.
But yeah, it'd be hotter than hell in here with that assay furnace roaring away. And that was because it was fired on compressed gas. There was no electricity up here then.
Right.
Yeah, there was none of that modern stuff.
Right.
And hotter than heck,
modern at the
Grandpa
time.
Wig, he was a good old boy, but a couple of us Hanley kids would be in his hair, and pretty soon he'd tell you, sweep the floor. You know, we get in his way. He'd go out play in the creek. But that's how I grew up, was this building.
Is this is this original ceiling here? Look at
Oh.
how dark it is from all the smoke and stuff from the stoves.
It's all original.
Oh, so that's all from the stove?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
to a point.
Yeah. And this is a original bar, and I imagine I would bet you this came out of his saloon that burned in the fire of 1905, because one thing that goes on in these town fires that they did is you got everybody to start dragging shit out in the street and covering it with wet blankets,
Yeah,
or just
try to
dragging
save
it
as
out in
much
the
as
street. There
possible.
was
Yeah.
all of the stuff in the post office in 1905. They didn't lose anything in there, lost the post office, but not not all the contents. A lot of people, the few people that had grocery stores and stuff or saloons, man, you'd be hauling your liquor out and probably this bar and stuff.
Yeah.
That's speculation, but good speculation.
Is that why they built them so heavy and not attached, so they could haul them out in case of a fire?
I don't
maybe?
know about that. No, just.
Oh.
I mean, when you
'Cause you
built,
want 'em heavy
when
so
you
a
built,
bunch of
you didn't
people
figure
didn't
on
knock
your
it
place
over.
burning up.
Right.
Right.
You know?
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's the original back bar. That's kind of cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And they'd been separated. That ended up out at my aunt and uncle's ranch out at Winnett for many years. But our cousins insisted, and we just got it back last year. They said it belonged
so that's
here. Yeah.
Brand new
Yeah.
to this. Okay.
Yeah. So you see,
So is that the entirety of it? Or was there other pieces? What?
no, that was it.
That was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't the shelves with all the liquor on it like they do nowadays.
And that log building back here, that was an original building in Maiden. I
So
think I
that-
can find it on these photographs.
That is your building?
That's my brother's.
That's your brother's. I was over there videotaping. I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm not. maybe I'm not
There's
supposed
a-
to
did you
videotape
go
this. Maybe we will here in a second because I was just doing some outside and I was like, oh shit.
Oh, that's
hope nobody's gonna come out.
that's
and get
the
me.
Maiden. What do you call that? Yoga studio now. But that was Tom Carr's. That was an original building in Maiden, and then that was his house. But my brother, it was in pretty bad shape. So Pat had nope.
Bill.
No. We know him. Who's coming to me? Barda.
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 Had Barda pour concrete, reassemble it, and then Pat changed the roof line and all that shit. Speaking of cyanide.
Just sorry, but real quick, is this by any chance related to
Bud.
Bud Barda? Oh, it is related to Nick. Nick. Okay. Anyways,
Yeah, so Bud did that job for Pat.
very cool. Very cool.
But anyway, that was Tom Carr's
Good job,
house.
Bud.
So Tom Carr, is he Carr's from Winifred?
Nope.
Different Carr.
And
Pause.
it's spelled
That's fine. You can take that off and can do your thing.
hello.
Get a lot of.
Most people do like this person. They drive up to this first sign.
Private. It says private.
And we invite him in. We tell him, yeah, go ahead and go look in that building, but we're real free with things. But I had goddamn California trespassers up here the other day.
They're stopped right here. They're
Tell them they can have a look.
yeah.
Yeah, this just adds to it.
Yeah. Why not?
How you-
Stop to see if PW was around.
Yeah, I don't know if he is. Yeah, you must be from Billings or something.
Bozeman.
Oh, Bozeman. You know Pat, huh?
No, I just pulled it off the sign there. It said PW Hanley.
Oh, that's my brother. Yeah, I'm Jerry Hanley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's PW.
Just so you guys know, we're in the middle of a podcast, so you guys are you okay with being in it?
Oh my gosh.
Is that
As long
okay?
as we're not messing things up. So.
No, we're actually at the very end of it here, but
No, they got me sitting
we're
here.
talking about the property and what happened, the history of this area.
We're
so.
happy to listen in if that's all right.
Well, I mean,
We're
Hi.
about to wrap it up.
yeah, we were. Yeah.
I happened to. My grandfather came here in 1895 and spent his life here. My mother and my two aunts were raised here. And my grandparents put together a pretty nice land package. And so we've inherited that, the three families, my family and my cousins. And we grew up here. And my grandfather did, and our parents did, and now we are. And now there's grandkids that are starting to show a little interest in at least helping us mow. They haven't invested any money in keeping these buildings up. But anyway, so we
Get your kids to help you mow. That's exciting.
yeah.
This is one thing. Something.
But we like sharing the place, and we're real congenial. And people stop by, go in there and look around, So anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We feel quite blessed to have it. Consequently, we like sharing it. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous area. We really haven't poked around in these hills before.
Yeah.
So.
So that was Maiden in its day. Yeah. It was quite the camp.
Do you mind being on camera?
No, I don't mind.
Is that okay? All right. Go ahead and step up there and look at it.
All right.
Sure.
You'll point out where we're sitting right now.
Yes, that'd be great.
So are they getting cut in too? He told me I'm in here for $100 an hour. Now what are these?
We're only sitting here for a minute.
Our cameo's free.
Thank you. He's expensive.
Well,
We're not union members.
just so you know, did you come out from Lewistown? And
Yeah.
did you come up the pothole road?
Yeah, from Hilger, yeah.
Yeah,
Real quick,
okay, so
what's
then
your
you
names real
drove
quick?
right in here on Montana Street, and this building wasn't here at that time because this Maiden burned in 1905, and this was built after that. But this building you're in sits about right here.
I figured we were about there.
Yeah, and that building across the road, that's what turned into my house.
So the mine's up in there.
Yeah, that's the Mcginnis mine. I own that. That is the most recent gold producing mine in Fergus County. Produced in 2016 and 2018. And it's an interesting story. What we did, a reclamation project, my brother and I, we're retired, so we hired somebody to do it. We sorted through these waste rock dumps very carefully where you could find there was values that would pay, and we shipped that over to the Golden Sunlight mine at Whitehall. You're familiar with that mine?
We live in Bozeman, so
Dang,
we're
and
by that a lot.
they just closed. The Golden Sunlight had a deal for about 10 years. If you were doing reclamation on old mine sites in Montana and you had enough gold to landowner and everybody makes money, they would buy your ore. But it had to be a reclamation project. There are about 300 mine sites in Montana that got cleaned up with that. But anyway, yep, we shipped about, as a matter of fact, if they were still open,
You'd ship
I'd be shipping right now. No kidding. But we, all told, it was about 20 pounds of gold that we recovered. And so back then, gold was about $1,320 an ounce. Right now, it's $1,750 an ounce. But if you want to run them numbers, figure out your troy ounces and all that, you'll see it was about $300,000 gross. That ain't much money for mining. But by God, it only cost my brother and I $299,999.99 to do it. But by God, we had fun.
You made a cent.
Yeah, we did it. No, actually, the guy everybody made a little money.
What's your guys' names real quick?
I'm Krista.
Krista?
Martin.
Daniel?
Hi, Daniel.
Nice to meet you.
Jerry?
Yeah.
And this is Greg over here.
Yeah.
We're just at the end of the podcast, and when we're done, I'll let you know how to look at it. But
Oh, that'd be great.
do you want to finish up real quick? I think we're done for the most part. Oh, don't trip! Don't trip! Don't trip.
Oh yeah. No, you've got the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. So what we were talking about is this might have to be a multiple occurrence thing.
Yeah. Because that is what happens. Because you start out with the old stories. And what happened back then, and then pretty soon you've taken up enough time and enough energy, and everybody's like done with it. It's just like when I do those presentations.
Yeah.
And then there's so much more. So what really went on in the
just adds more
20s
questions.
and the 30s and the 40s, and then the modern day, which I consider. So I started mining here in 1971. Okay. So then you go back to, I can tell you all these old stories about the spotted horse and the Mcginnis and these mines, and now there's a whole another modern day history of what went on
Sure.
with the mines.
Spotted horse.
Yeah.
Yep.
100 people working up here again, you know. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it.
It says assay office porch. So this was also the assay office?
Yes, this was my grandfather's assay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Where
the
he
saloon was kind of a secondary function.
no
First.
it was a
Oh,
saloon
original function.
until it closed in 1918.
And then okay.
It was boarded up. Mrs. White's hotel burned. She moved in it, and she died in 1933. And she just moved in it. The cash register was just still a saloon. She was an elderly lady, and she lived in here. And then my grandfather had assay office buildings in other places, but then he moved in here, and this was his assay office until 1957. And then my parents, these two people, in the 70s, they started fixing it up as kind of a family headquarters.
Yeah.
We didn't have all these other buildings fixed up. So they fixed this up, and there was a kitchenette down there, bunk beds, and we'd bring our campers and stuff, and they had this ugly old carpet in here. And as you can see, my father, he was a retired locomotive engineer.
Saw the engineer.
Yeah. And God, that's all I wanted to be, was a locomotive engineer as a kid. Oh, about that big. You're colorblind. Colorblind? You know, they figure that out in school, and you're painting trees red and everybody's making fun of you. Well, you can't be a locomotive engineer when you're colorblind. Mm-hmm. Broke my heart.
Yeah.
So I took up drawing them, and I got fairly good at it.
That was you?
Yeah, that's one of
no way.
that's one of my drawings. And by God, then I was actually up here at Maiden drawing pictures, trying to be an artist, which wasn't panning out real good. But anyway, well, part of the trouble.
After you're dead, you'll be worse.
Yeah. But anyway, a guy
you're
knocked
dead.
on the door in 1971, said, I seen smoke coming out of the chimney, you want a job? So I got a job in the Spotted Horse Mine over the hill, and I fell in love with mining like that. So anyway, I continued to draw for a few years. But one thing I liked about mining is they got railroads down the mines. Some of them to East Boulder, large railroad. And I always liked that part of it. And they didn't give a damn if you were colorblind or not down there in the dark.
Yeah.
You could run the train all you wanted, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't matter about colorblind down there in the dark. Yeah, but I drew quite a bit of them, but I don't draw them anymore.
Do you have any others around here that you drew?
Oh, I got a bunch of the originals are in my house.
Oh, you have so.
Yeah. That one,
That's amazing.
I printed that one because that's
So cool.
the Charlie Russell Choo Choo, you know, our
Right.
dinner train. Have you ever ridden it?
Not yet.
Oh, it's really great. But anyway, this was the train. This was the real Milwaukee Railroad one. My father ran that a lot. So I wrote up a history to go with this, and they sell them prints on that train. I wrote up a history about the real train and stuff, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
There's so much
You're a very
history
good
there,
artist.
It's great.
Very good artist. That's awesome.
I got pretty good at well, it was details.
That's the only job I've ever held down. I've never held a job.
Yeah, he railroaded. I'm jealous. He railroaded and didn't like it.
You were a railroader.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I've always thought you were always just a carpenter.
No.
Other than that, I've always
That's
worked
right, I
for
forgot
myself.
about
That's the
that.
only job I've ever held down.
Yeah, as a kid, young guy, you got a job breaking or
Right
something.
out of high school.
I would have given,
Head brakeman.
you know.
Hey,
Quit
let's
after 8 months. It
let's
was
end the
so boring.
podcast so then we can just hang out. So I don't have to be doing this anymore.
What's that?
Let's end it. You want to end it?
I swear you're in charge.
Let's do it. We're ending it. Thank you for being involved. All right, Jerry, real quick. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna have to do it multiple. We're gonna have to talk about other things here. We talked about Maiden, but there's a few other topics that we touched on that I think we need to go a little bit more in depth.
What
on.
would you think of going down underground with a little podcast thing?
Yes. Yeah, you just blew my mind. Yeah, you want to do that? Let's
yeah,
say
sure.
episode 2, we go underground.
Yeah, we
Yeah?
can.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.